So using this plugin is pretty simple. You only have this one blueprint, and then you have an interface that will help you triggering your own custom events when the character goes in or out of the zone. So what you're gonna do is just pull this time dilation zone blueprint into your level, and you can see it's empty. That's because we need to create instances for each of the zone meshes, and you have your own custom shape that you can change. You don't have to use the cube, you can use sphere or whatever you want. And let's click plus on the instances. Now we have one instance of the mesh, and we also have some options. So you can change the transforms in here for it, but you can also click on it here and also change the transforms directly on it. This also helps you to scale it up, move it around, and it will just change this one instance instead of deforming the whole blueprint. So let's put it something like that. And now let's go back to the blueprint, and also keep in mind that you need to save changes whenever you transform, so some information won't get lost. It can especially happen if you change the zone transforms, but then you don't save and try to change times. So I would suggest saving changes frequently. Now that you have this, we can go to the next option, which is activation type. This basically means that when do you want for this time dilation in and out to activate. When activation type is set to in and out, that basically means that in will activate when you go into the zone and out will activate when you go out. But if I change this to in only, let's say, that means that only when I go into the zone it's gonna trigger in, and then if I go out it won't trigger, but if I go in again it's gonna trigger the out. So it kind of cycles between them, but only activates when I go in. And basically same thing for out, but yeah, only when you exit. Then this time tab will have everything you need for modifying the time and fading in and out. It's kind of self-explanatory. Time dilation in basically means when you go into the zone, time dilation out when you go out. And the biggest thing in here is this time dilation per actor. So you can also change the activation to be global or just per actor. So you can change how the character that goes into the zone his own custom times. That basically means that you can set only the character to, let's say, speed of 0.5, but the whole world is gonna go normal speed. Or you can also change the speed of the whole world if you disable this option. And now you have time dilation fade in and out. This is basically to not get instant change in time. So if you're making some big changes, maybe you don't want the character to snap to one time or another, you want it to happen over time. This is the options that you would change. Next thing that we have are filters. So filters basically mean that if you leave them alone here, it's gonna trigger for every object that goes into this this zone and is set to overlap. So if I click on instant static mesh, we can see what this object overlaps with. Right now it's set to only the pawn and the vehicle. You can of course change this, but the more you change it, the more objects are going to be able to overlap with it. And maybe there are some objects that you don't want to overlap, so this is kind of on you to figure out how the overlap will work. But basically filters, if they're left to 0, basically they're just gonna activate for everything that they overlap with. But if you set any of the tag or class filters, it's gonna filter things out. So we can basically test this out quickly. Let's click play. So if I go into the zone, I'm in slow motion. If I go out, I'm 2 times faster. And we can also visualize the zone so it's easier to see what we are doing. And let's set the tag filter to test. Let's click play. Now you can see our character does not activate any of the time dilation. But if I go to my character, type tag here, and type test, our character will interact with the zone because now we have the filter activated. Let's close this out. Now class filters work similarly, but it's for the classes. So if I select the actor here, even though our character is his parent of the character is the pawn, and then the parent of the pawn is the actor, I think. So technically this character is an actor, but these class filters specifically test for for a specific class, so it's gonna test for third-person character. So if I select actor here and click play, we do not interact with the zone. But if I select the third-person character, we do interact. So that's kind of one thing to keep in mind there. Next, we have particles. This basically means, do we want to have something when we go in and out of the zone? And then we also have the sound. Do we want some sound? Let's just put some sample sounds. And now you can hear there is some interactions happening. So that's basically the gist of it, but you of course can play around with it and see how you want to make it work. There is also the interface, so we can go here. Let's disable the tag, and we need implement an interface. Let's click add, type API, and add Time-Dilation. And this basically means that we can now have interfaces and trigger some of our own custom events. You can add this interface to the character or to the controller, and you can have it, but right now I don't test for all of the classes that you can have, only those two. But this is also the content-only plugin, meaning that everything is done with the blueprints here, so you can at any point change some functions, so you can add more tests if maybe you want to trigger something in the game mode or something like that. But you can have a trigger here. Let's do start time. And now we can see we trigger when we go into the zone. So that's kind of the basics of it. There is not any hidden complexity. You can create custom stuff and be creative. So just to quickly go over this, you can also look at the overview video that I made to kind of check how all of these tests work, but I can just quickly go over the kind of things that I tried. So one thing in here is when you go out of this zone, you're gonna gain some speed, and then you can step on this button, activate the doors, and have enough speed to kind of pass through. But if you're going normal speed, the door is gonna close faster. So that's one thing that you can use it for. In here I created a test zone where I actually have two blueprints in here, two separate ones. So one for the global and one for the per actor. And I speed up the actor and slow down the world. And then what happens is basically your character is kind of in a slow motion, but he's moving normally while the whole world is slowed down. And this helps the character go through this obstacle and not get hit, damaged, or killed. Then in here, what we have is something that you can use where maybe you have like a car going over a ramp or something, and then only in this little section, when the character goes over, it is in slow motion, and then when he goes out, he's in the normal speed, so you can kind of get cool effect. Basically in like a 30-second setup, it's really easy to set up. And then also what I created in here is basically when you go out of this zone, you lose or gain speed, meaning that after you go out of this zone, you're gonna be at 0.5 speed, I think, and then 2x speed if you go out of this zone, and then reset to normal speed if you go out of this zone. So there is like multiple creative ways to kind of use these zones. You don't have to just use them where your time changes when you're in the zone and then time is normal when you're out of the zone, something like that. You can combine and make some fun stuff.